Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another breakdown. Today we are taking a look at an entire column of Russian tanks destroyed by Ukrainian forces. And stay tuned because we're going to break down how the US military ensures that this doesn't happen ever to their tanks. Let's get into it. So there's not actually any sound of this video, but we can see here it looks like a column of Russian tanks that is stopped for some reason. I'm seeing some tanks already smoking, so I think what we're looking at is this attack in progress. So you can see, boom, it looks like there's an artillery round that hits here right at the very front of the column. This is a great way to ambush an armored column because, as you can see, they're trapped, right? There's big heavy trees on either side. The tanks really can't go anywhere, and you've destroyed the lead tank, meaning that the other tanks now have their escape route, at least their forward escape route, blocked by kind of the smoldering tank in front of them. And again, in the US tradition, we don't leave fallen comrades. We always are going to go in and at least get the people out of the tank, right? Even if we can't salvage the tank itself. There's another artillery round that hits a little off to the side. All right, here we go. Boom. There, they hit another tank. Actually, this could be a anti-tank mine that they run over, right? It's a really precise round. Let's see. Yeah, I think this may actually be an anti-tank mine. So this may be the lead attack of this ambush. And this is pretty crafty by using anti-tank mines, right? So anti-tank mines are mines that are so heavy that a person and even often a car driving over them won't set them off. It needs to be the weight of a tank. And so you have this tank driving. The lead tank is going to hit the anti-tank mine. Boom, it's going to be stuck. It's going to stop the whole column. That starts your ambush. Now they are going to start raining artillery right along this road. And here's the nice thing, because you know when the first AT mine goes off, that you know exactly where the lead tank is. So all you have to do is pre-aim your artillery at points immediately down the road. You know the armored column is coming, let's say, from the north to the south, right? So you just say to your artillery people, hey, pre-position of rounds to go here and here and here. And as soon as that AT mine goes off, just fire for effect, which means just put rounds onto the target. Boom. Yep, that's probably the ammunition of the tank cooking off. That's really big for an AT mine. Yep, you can see these tanks have had a bad time of things. And it looks like some of them are trying to withdraw. So, oh, and yep, somebody else hits them dead on. Could be another AT mine. Could be an artillery strike. Let's see. This is really precise artillery. Yep, there is an example of another down tank. Let's see, there's a BMP that's been blown out. And here's the Ukrainian forces doing what's called a BDA, or a battle damage assessment. This is where your ground forces go in and they look for anything of intelligence value, right? That can be things like, what unit are these tanks with? Do they have unit markings? Is there radios, maps, or anything else inside the tank? Are there prisoners that could be taken? Anything, and how effective was your artillery? Were these rounds effective? Did some of our rounds not penetrate the tank's armor? Anything that's going to help make your operation better next time is what you're going to capture in your BDA. So the Ukrainian forces are out here doing a BDA. This, I think, has been released by, I think, the unit's public affairs, possibly their like Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. So this is cleared for release, right? And you can see it was a very, very, very effective attack. Now, how did this happen to the Russian forces, and how does the US military stop this from happening? Well, the answer is what we've talked about a lot, is that the Russian armed forces don't really do combined arms operation. And combined arms is a term for integrating, making sure that the efforts of air, armor, and infantry, and even things like seaborne forces, all operate seamlessly together to achieve like synergy, right? Sort of like how in a video game, if you pick the right items, then your character will be more powerful by combining the effects of those items. For example, I don't know, you increase the damage that you deal, and you also increase the rate of attack, so that, your damage output, triples, right? That sort of thing. So in the military, this is an example of how what happens when you don't have combined arms. So in this case, right, this tank column was moving down the road, and let's say the first tank did encounter an AT mine. Now, in U.S. combined arms operation, we do a very good job of route clearance, and that is the term for ensuring that a route is actually navigable by friendly forces. And so we have a couple of ways to do that. We have drones that will fly overhead several hours before the column goes to check for people out in placing mines. You can also use combat engineers who have what are called mine clearers or mine rollers who will check a route. Obviously, you may not be able to do that if you think there's still hostile forces potentially in the area. But you will also have, for example, infantry that might actually go ahead and literally clear mines. Military police can also do that function of route reconnaissance. So there's a lot of different options out there to ensure routes are clear. But even if you can't pre-clear a route before moving your main force along it, what you can do is use your combined arms aircraft to ensure that even if you encounter a mine on the road, that you're not going to have what happened to these tanks, which is they're going to get hit with artillery fire. So what the U.S. forces will always do is, even if there's a tank column moving down the road and they hit an AT mine, right, they will ask, sometimes immediately, sometimes they will already have aircraft on station. And what those aircraft are going to do is they're going to start watching. They're going to be looking for exactly what they just ran into, which is a fire base, a Ukrainian military base that's returning fire. And if you are an aircraft, right, you can see that there's this artillery unit going to start throwing rounds at your tanks. And what those aircraft will do is use their long range weapons to try to engage that artillery before it can launch more like devastating strikes. And so eventually, right, you'll run out of artillery if every time you try to launch this sort of ambush, it gets pounded by fixed or rotary wing aircraft. Think like an Apache or an F-15, or we don't use F-15s, it's an F-22, right, coming in, hitting this artillery before it can be more devastating. So instead of losing, so the result of that operation, when you have all your forces working together, right, that tank column a U.S. tank column, lead tank would have hit an AT mine, been disabled, right, and then an F-22 would be looking, they would see that artillery unit start to fire, and they would know, or they'd scan for one nearby, they'd find it maybe before it even starts firing, and they would engage it with their air-to-ground missile systems, destroying that artillery unit. The end result, your forces lose one tank, they lose an entire artillery battery. Not even close who the winner is. But it only works if you have combined arms. If you don't have it, right, if you don't have aircraft supporting your tanks, right, like the Russians do, then you're going to have an outcome like this, where tanks are caught all alone by themselves, right? No one supporting them, blind and unable to fire back at these artillery units. So this is a function, again, we've talked ad nauseum about the Russian military's inability to engage, to communicate, to coordinate, to collaborate. And these are advanced skills that are hard to cultivate in an officer and NCO corps. The fact that the U.S. military does it not even just among their officers, but among their senior NCOs, and they're considered basic skills that soldiers at every level need to know, is illustrative of just how much more professional the U.S. military is, and how with the right resources allocated in the right way, they can achieve far greater effects than just having a lot of tanks or a lot of helicopters, right? It's about not just having a lot of something, but it's about working together. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me on this quick breakdown. Thanks again to the patrons of Patreon. They get access to exclusive content on the 1st and 15th of every month. And thanks to our Lieutenant tier patrons, Cole Foster, Command Unit, Caffeinated, Jack Flavius, Chris, Dr. Shoutout, Porter World Time, Brandon Armitage, Telrune, Astro Hunter, and Joker. You guys make this channel possible. And of course, also, if you stayed this long, be sure to hit the subscribe button. I have this dream of getting to 100K subs. I would love to get that YouTube silver plaque on my wall. It would mean a lot to me. So if you can, hit sub. And I'll see you guys in the next one.